Okay. A micro lecture is really all of these things. It's a framework, an advanced organizer. It lets you get your thoughts out there to your learners, get a little bit of touch with them, and also start to look at resonating with particularly their learning styles. For example, there's some research out there, and I've got some resources at the end of the presentation for you guys as well. There's some research out there that says, it's kind of a scary statistic, that these days learner attention spans measured in a span of minutes is equivalent to one's age in years. So for example, for my 32, that means my average attention span is about 32 minutes. If you start to break that down into the higher ed group at the undergraduate level, you're looking at 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds who's, by this, theory, their attention span is now 18, 19 minutes. That's pretty short. And if you look at the emerging social media trends, like Twitter, Facebook status updates, all that's very short, 140 characters or even less sometimes. That's the way we're conditioning people to get knowledge and to expect knowledge. So, this is a way of taking what Somebody Captivate never played it. Sorry, just reading the comments. Good conversation going on down there. This is a way to kind of to look at that group and make to their needs or learning styles. Now, the microlecture concept, I'd love to say I came up with this, but I didn't. This was developed by David Penrose over at SunGuard Higher Education. And the basic definition of the microlecture is a 1 to 3 minute video or audio hitting key points for the work that you're trying to get learners to do. So, objectives followed by an assignment that ties back to the objectives. And it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It doesn't work for all types of content. It's certainly not a substitution for sustained discussions throughout the week. Gotcha. But it is a way to get a little bit of a human element in your courses. I've actually used this rather successfully in some courses I've taught for the ITM program. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback in my evaluations as far as really feeling the learners felt they had a connection with me, even though the course met entirely online. So let's take a little look at a micro lecture before we start talking about organizing the content, some of the software that you could use. So I'm going to, if you guys just give me 1 second, I'm going to push out a web link here that is in fact a micro lecture I did on micro lectures, i.e. it's today's session as a micro lecture. So it's about 2 minutes. Let's just watch that, and then we'll reconvene here and continue the discussion. So give me 1 second. Okay, folks, we're back. I apologize for the folks that couldn't see that, where it was blocked by firewall. That wasn't, in fact, hosted on YouTube. And talk a little bit about different places to put this. Uh, Sorry, Noel, if you just got a nasty gram from the firewall police. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about how I went to build that. And there's a basic set of steps to take when creating a micro lecture. And the first is organizing key concepts. And so what you're looking to do is in what you'd normally do in a regular lecture or presentation, if you have 4 or 5 objectives that you were going to hit, write those down. That becomes the structure for your micro lecture. From there, create a related assignment that ties to it. Once again, you want to call the students to action, learners to action. You want them to take these concepts, explore them, integrate them, and then finally, just write up a brief intro and conclusion to frame the whole session. And so, when looking at creating this type of thing, let's talk about. And then I'll share one more example for the folks that can view it. So let's look at tools here really quick. A couple basic tools for doing micro lectures would be, having a webcam and having a. Sorry, I'm just reading Jim's comment here. That's quite funny. You need a webcam and you need a video editing package. If you're using a Macintosh, or perhaps if you can go over to marketing and borrow a Macintosh, generally have a webcam and Apple Imovie. That's really all you need. If you're on the PC, no problem. Just get yourself a Logitech webcam. For $30 or $40. Sony makes a great video editing package, very simple to use. It's called Vegas Movie Studio HD. You can download it right from their website or order a box copy. And of course, your favorite beverage. You end up doing a lot of talking when you first start doing micro lectures. And if you're like me, you get a little bit of dryness in the throat. So important and colorful. So when you're looking at the workflow for this, you want to break it up. Leverage what you can out of the computer, which you end up with a very nonlinear process. So here we're recording key concepts, we're recording an intro and a conclusion, then we're organizing our clips, adding some titles and music. I know some people had mentioned that they found some of the music a bit distracting. That's okay. It's preference. And there's also things you can do to reduce the level of music while you're in fact talking. And then finally, publish your content. And here's where we hit a bit of a snag. I chose to publish this to YouTube. A lot of the packages, for example, iMovie and the Sony package, have direct upload capability to YouTube, so that you can get that out there. Certainly in an academic environment, that works very well. For our corporate friends out there, that didn't work so well. You'd be looking to upload it to your learning management system or internal server. Hang on 1 second, folks. Just need to answer a chat question really quick. Okay, now let's look at a quick workflow example here of what this might actually look like in a particular software package. So this is a quick little screenshot of iMovie from Apple, and let's see here. What does the file size for one of these tend to be? It really all depends what you are looking at as far as a medium. If you're doing video versus audio. If you're doing audio, 3 minutes of audio in an MP3 format's, what, about 3 megabytes or so. And for a video, compressed to an MP4 format, it's larger than that, probably in the 10 to 15 megabyte type of space. Once again, where something like YouTube or Vimeo excels in that you don't have to worry about that. You just upload it, and they have theoretically infinite storage. So basically here, this is a kind of an example of the workflow of what I would do to go and capture these things. I just captured directly from my webcam at home. I'd capture several little clips. That's what you see here in the bottom right-hand corner. Each of those is a particular segment of the micro lecture, and you'll see there's a lot of them because I tend to just record a point, and then string them together. And that's what you see in the upper left-hand corner. You'll see titles, then you'll see a little headshot of me. That's the particular point I brought in. More titles, so on and so forth. So really, I'm just piecing it together. I don't have to worry about doing it in one shot because that just doesn't happen to be one of my strengths. Okay, so that's kind of the general flow of it. I'd like to share one other micro lecture with you guys. For the folks that can view it. And for the folks that can't, I'd certainly like to have a little bit of a dialogue in the chat area while everybody else is reviewing the micro lecture. This is one I actually did in my ITM course, and it's really about the course is about visual design and really the importance of visuals. And this has kind of gotten the nickname as the quote unquote SEAL presentation. Which you'll see why if you can view it. Hang on a second. It's a bit humorous, a bit more of my kind of classroom style. I think I'm funny. Nobody else does. That's the way it goes. Karen said, "Can you provide the links to the YouTube files?" Absolutely. I'll just drop those in the chat really quick here as soon as I push out the video. Give me 1 second, folks. Thanks for bearing with us today. Okay, folks, I'm just going to pull back from the example. What I really wanted to show there is that you can use additional media in there to make your point. You can include PowerPoints. You could include depending upon whatever software you're using. Still images. Whatever you want to use. You can get a lot of mileage out of this type of thing. You can do it as a video lecture and grab the audio track. And then podcast out of it as well. Compare this to the Penchakucha session. Well, Jacqueline, I don't have a lot of experience with it. I'm certainly, I'm familiar with the technique as far as fitting into a very defined timeline. I say this is probably a little more freer or looser than the Penchakucha method. It can be 1 minute, it can be 3 minutes. You really just don't want to make it 15 minutes. A couple other things. Terry, corporate new hire program from the CEO. Yeah, this would be a great way to put a face and get people at least feeling that they have a connection to the CEO. Patty's got a great question on accessibility, and quite honestly, there's only two answers to that question. Of course, the first is, well, you provide a textual transcript of everything that's in the micro lecture, and that's an option. The other option is, of course, if you're really using this as a means to provide a human element to your learners, you're covering this material in other ways already. Your objectives are already stated in your online material. You're presenting them discussions, you're presenting them readings, and so a lot of this is already covered. So, if you want to kind of fudge it a little bit, you could say that the material is already presented in a different way. The main purpose of this type of approach is an advanced organizer to get people, in line for the week, get themselves, oriented, and point them in the direction that you want to move them. Patty, does that kind of answer your accessibility question? I mean, like I said, there's really only two ways to do it. Exactly as Bobby mentioned, we're providing the content in a different form, trying to hit different learning styles, just kind of resonate with the greatest number of folks that we can. So, I mean, we kind of started talking about it a little bit, what other concerns or comments or thoughts do you have on this approach? Certainly if you'd like to chime in, go ahead and raise your hand, hit the little hand button there, and, we'll ask you to, speak instead of, we don't have to type everything in here.
Okay, Carol. Carol has a question. Would you like to ask a question first, or Bill? Bill, why don't you go first?
Folks to talk, just make sure you click that talk button or hold down the control key on your keyboard. Sorry, Bobby.
Yeah, why don't we ask that question again and see whose hands go up?
So yeah, any concerns with this approach? I know we've got a couple here in the chat box, which I'll answer. But folks, if you want to ask them, verbally, by all means, please click the hand raise button, and we'll get to everybody in turn. File size for that 2-minute video. Once again, I really wasn't worrying about it too much because I was uploading it to YouTube. Therefore, it was kind of out of sight, out of mind. You're probably looking at 15 to 20 megabytes of space for that 2-minute video. Christy has a question. Once you get the mechanic down, how long would you say it takes to produce a 3-minute lecture? It's a good question. I tend to use a very much of a templated approach to these. Once I get something working for a class, for example, I'll just pull in last week's lecture, strip out the video, change the titles, and re-record the video. Really, if you're really, really good and you're prepared, maybe 10 minutes to make sure you've got all your points down, create a quick assignment, and then another 10 or 15 minutes to record it, depending upon how much you tend to stutter and what you consider an acceptable level. I don't worry about it too much myself. I just try to get my thoughts down. Everything out there is nothing's perfect, and this is very much a rapid prototyping type of approach. All right, let's see. Joanna has a good point that it seems to be a cool format for introducing yourself and presentation and assignments before a session begins. For example, at a conference, it's also a great use for it. Bernice has a comment here. Seems to be that the micro lecture would be more visual related material and less focused on lecture. To some degree, yeah. I mean, once again here we're looking at how much material do we really need to put online? Do we need to record a 3-hour lecture if we're doing a class, for example, for the week? In some cases, yes. There's a lot of, for example, if you go and check out, what MIT's done, if you go to their YouTube EDU page, there's tons of long form lectures. And for some topics, that's certainly applicable. For other topics, once again, where you're just trying to introduce that human touch, let's say for your week, you've already got several assignments that touch on the topics. You've already got 3 or 4 discussions for people to talk about the topics. Once again, you're just really you're reminding them that yes, there is a real human being behind this that you can ask questions to, and is an authority on the subject.
I'd like to throw out the question to the chat. What ways do you think that you could use micro lectures in your organizations? One that came to me just while we were talking, in most of the asynchronous classes, what a wonderful way to have your learners introduce themselves to each other and put a face and a voice to what otherwise would be a screen name. So why don't we explore that, and let's raise our hands in the chat, and we'll do it that way.
Let me just DRAM's question here. I'm not sure of any web-based way to record video. There are some web-based web conferencing tools that you could use to perhaps get a bit of a feel for this. Or there are screen capture applications. For example, Screener from Articulate that does record audio and images online for you then to reuse. You could use that as an example. You wouldn't get the video component, but you could get kind of a set of stills if they were using a PowerPoint and their narration. Here, I'll just type the URL for Screener into the chat room. Something you guys can check out and have fun with, and it's free.
How about Skype? Could you record the video lecture part in Skype?
What application you need to do? The regular screen capture applications wouldn't record the video being streamed through a chat program. You need something a little bit more high-end to do that, and I don't know off the top of my head what apps would do that.
All right, folks, let's use our imagination here. What ways do you think you could use this in your organization? What can you think of that a technique like this might be applicable for?
Hey, Robin, absolutely.
Robin says
for
we
an
could.
asynchronous. Go ahead, Bobby.
Go ahead, John. It's yours.
Right, thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Robin was saying, could a micro lecture be used as part of an asynchronous course as the introduction? Absolutely. That's what I use it for. I teach a 15-week course, and there's an introductory micro lecture, and each week has a micro lecture to it that introduces key concepts, kind of points out those little gotchas that I want to direct people to, and gets them moving for the week.
All right. Colleen said, an executive interview to introduce a new policy. Yeah, absolutely. This would be a great one of those get the word out kind of training things. Yes, definitely. Orientations by execs, yep. Pieces of how to be a speaker program. John, you want to kind of take every other one there? So.
Sure. Let's see, speaker orientation, customer service, leads explaining how to handle customer complaints or issues, action items from team leaders for the next meeting, situational learning, video greetings of executives for new hires. All great ideas and applications. And even though it's not directly related to micro lectures, I have to say that in my own work as an instructional designer, I really started to leverage these screen capture type of tools, these quick video recording type of tools to answer client questions. You can very easily with tools like Screener or Jing, record a quick video demonstration in a particular piece of software and email it out. Email out just a link. It's a great way to build a repertoire of learning modules very quickly to address a broad variety of situations, and you're not taking a whole lot of time doing it, which is great. Hey, Colleen's got some good points. YouTube example not used in corporate environments. Absolutely true. Typically more polished examples might be too informal. Colleen, I certainly agree with you there. Though, the flip side of that argument, it's always 6 to 1, half dozen the other, is more of an informal approach, may, depending upon your audience, may resonate more. May help to humanize and not just see upper management, for example, as just names on doors. Hey, these are real people. These are people I like, I relate to. They're therefore providing employee connection and boosting morale. But there's a flip side of that argument too, which I certainly understand and agree. Bobby, I'm sorry I cut you off.
Yeah, no. I was going to chime in there for Colleen and just say, you don't have to publish these in YouTube. You could publish these on the corporate servers behind the firewall. The little micro lecture into Flash video, put a link out there, and publish it that way. John just chose to publish it in YouTube. YouTube doesn't really have anything to do with the technique.
Yeah, a lot of what I do is try to leverage, free tools or low-cost tools, and certainly for educational use, I can get away with things like YouTube or Vimeo. In which case, I'm certainly going to use them because then I'm not taking up internal server space. I'm not, asking anybody, hey, I need a streaming video server. I'm just utilizing what's already out there. Bernice has a question about, sending one out via email. I certainly don't think I would send out the lecture itself by email or presentation. I would send out a link to it, but you could absolutely do that. Like I said, I do something very similar with clients I work with as far as sending out, screencasts, which are essentially just micro lectures with a little demonstration of what you want them to be doing. I send out links to things I record all the time. People love it. So it's a great way of adding a personal touch. I'm not just typing out what I want to say. I'm showing you exactly, the point I'm trying to get across, and it's the next best thing to me being there.
I'd just like to throw out the challenge. Can anybody see uses for this in terms of just-in-time learning? You could actually drop these into little micro lectures into Adobe Acrobat these days. So you could send out a training piece that was combination print and a little micro lecture.
Susan's got a good question. Talk about why you would use a webcam and not a video camera. There are a couple. Well, like everything else, there's pros and cons to each approach. For my purposes, reaching out to my class, webcam is sufficient. It's also what I've got, and as Bobby says, it's cheap, fast, and easy. When you start talking about using a video camera, there are other things that fit in the mix other than just the camera itself. There's the room you're shooting at, there's the lighting, there's the audio. Putting a video camera on a conference table without external microphones, lapel mic or shotgun mic, area mic, something like that, you're not going to get a real polished look. So there's a lot that goes into it other than just using a video camera. In which case I say, hey, if you're not going to go the whole 9 yards, then just use the webcam. It's good enough for quick, reusable and or disposable, depending on how you look at it, objects. So either way, there's says you couldn't do a micro lecture using a very polished shoot in a nice video studio. You come out with a great looking product.
Okay, we have some more stuff in the chat here. I want to call on some of these people so they can talk.
Sure, sure. Let's see here. Jacqueline's got a good point. Jacqueline, do you want to elaborate on your point? Just go ahead and hit the control key, and you can chat with us. Gotcha, Jacqueline. No problem. Jacqueline's point was, you don't have to video your face. You can video the keyboard for software instruction. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Don't underestimate a friend of mine used to work for a contracting firm, a government contracting firm, and they used to do this type of approach all the time for short, informal pieces of learning. If they was a defense contractor, so if they were working on a product and they needed to do a maintenance operation, maintenance operator would call the training department and say, hey, I'm going to replace a widget. And they say, all right, great. They grab a video camera, they run down to the floor, they videotape the guy replacing the widget and talking through what he's doing. They grab that, save it as a video format they can put in the learning management system, and bang, they've got a reusable learning object that didn't take any time to build and contributed to productivity. So all sorts of different ways you can apply this. Barbara,
Yeah,
good question.
I believe somebody asked if all this chat was going to be in the archive, and I believe all of it is in the archive.
Yeah, I mean, everything that we're talking about will be recorded in the archive. You guys can listen to it at your leisure. Barbara has a good question. What's the cost of producing a micro lecture? That's a good question. It's not something I really worry about too much, especially since I'm doing this admittedly in an educational realm. But cost of producing a micro lecture, cost of your PC plus application and hardware. If you've got a PC that's which you already have, it's about $70 of hardware plus your time. So it's really whatever you bill out as, or internal chargebacks as far as that goes. I'm sorry, somebody had a question?
Okay, we have a question from Patty. How do you make these accessible to deaf and blind learners and Section 8 compliant for use in government agencies?
Yeah, I mean, accessibility, 508 compliance is very important. The only way to do it would be a textual transcript. That way you're providing equivalent information that can be caught by a screen reader, or just read textually. If 508 compliance is something that's important, you just have to realize that there's that extra step. Now you can mitigate if it's a demo that's not 508 compliant, right? If you really script out what you're going to say in your micro lecture, you're already there to your 508 compliance. Because don't forget, you're recording here. You're not standing in front of people. There's nothing that says you can't read from a script. Just have a text document up on your screen while you're recording the video and just read it verbatim. Because we're not talking about a lot of text here. We're talking about a minute and a half, 3 minutes worth of text. Just read it off of a script. Now that script you can save as a Word document or PDF it. Attach it with the micro lecture, and now you have an equivalent item right there for 508 compliance.
Yeah, I guess my comment, Patty, would be the same way you make anything else 508 compliant. If you're recording audio or you're recording video, the fact that it's a micro lecture doesn't make it any different. It's the same steps that you have to take to make anything 508 compliant.
I've got a couple of questions here, one from Patty, one from Bernice. I'm going to combine these questions because I think that they are compatible. It's okay for a talking head, not enough if visual content is important, and then can use a webcam to show a piece of the screen to illustrate a point. now we're kind of moving into a slightly different level of content development. We're not talking about just a quick capture to get it out there. We're saying, all right, you can absolutely do this type of content even in the micro lecture format, but you have to do those components with a different tool. For example, something like Jing or something like you need to do, and then export that as a movie file, which all those packages can do, and import it into your video application of choice, splicing it in just like I spliced in the image of the fields to illustrate my design point. So you can absolutely do it. It's just taking a little bit more time. Certainly worth it if that's what your content warrants. Jeff has a quick question.
Janice wants to know, John, if you can talk. Go ahead.
Yep. Oh, no, sorry. I see Janice's question, and absolutely. So Jeff just mentioned what's the price to create micro lectures. Once again, it's really just dependent upon the hardware you already have and the software you already have. If you've already got a PC, you can do it for about $70 and whatever your time is worth. If you've got a Macintosh, you've already got everything you need, and then once again, it's just whatever your time is worth. Janice has a question here on can you talk a little bit about using Jing? Sure. For those of you who don't know, Jing, which is available at jingproject.com, let me just type the URL in here. Jingproject.com is a screen capture application, very much like Screener, which I typed in the URL for earlier, and it's by the folks that make Camtasia, which is the guys who make Camtasia, which is TechSmith. And basically, it's a light version of Camtasia, specifically designed to either capture still screens or capture animations, i.e., if you're doing a software demonstration. At the same time it's capturing it, you can narrate along with it. And when you're done, it simply spits out a Flash video file, all packaged up for you. There's no editing capability. There's not meant for there to be any editing capability. Once again, it's a rapid development tool. You're limited to about 5 minutes of recording, which is fine if you're looking at just making small, short, reusable learning objects targeting one particular job task. And as Bobby said, it's free, my favorite price. So you can use tools like that to essentially build a micro lecture of a different format, where you're saying, hey, this week, guys, we're looking at using a particular component of our SAP system, very small individual component, and I'm going to demonstrate how to use this, how we want you to use it in the field. Do that with Jing, record it, and send it out to the field, as needed. Great way to answer just-in-time training requests. Janice, did that kind of answer your question, or at least get a little bit of your exploration? I certainly encourage you to go ahead and check out Jing. It's free, and it's a lot of fun.
Do we have any other questions on micro lectures, on how to do it, or what they may, or any ideas that we'd like to share on how they may be useful to sort of, as Emerald would say, kick it up a notch? Kick it up a notch. Any other questions, comments?
And just to note, these resources up here on the screen, more on micro lectures, are actually on the first YouTube clip. So that link further up on the chat that everybody grabbed, that'll have all these links in it as well. Joanna, I'm glad this was informative.
Yeah, and I think we had a good suggestion here. Somebody said this is a great thing for pre-work. I would say this is also a great thing for post-work. What we have a tendency to do is maybe do a little pre-work, do the course, and that's the last anybody ever hears of it. You could use these to sort of refresh the knowledge, all those things we talk about, reinforcement over time down the road.
And there, I'll just leave with this one thought. You can always flip this model around. you can make this an assignment for your learners, especially if you're in an educational context. Rather than having someone submit a paper, rather than having everybody gather online, for a WebEx session or a Wimba session or whatever type of synchronous tool you use on whatever night you're meeting, most people can, in fact, create these type of things with stuff they have around the house. Most people have a video camera. They can just record, an answer to an assignment in the same way. Lay out a couple points, and provide resources. Upload it to YouTube, send the link to the instructor, and you've now submitted your assignment in a slightly different way. Give people a little bit of creative control. Let them do something a little bit more fun and out of the box. And it's a way to assess presentation skills as well. So that's all I've got. Thanks, everybody, for joining. We'll certainly be hanging around here if you've got any more questions. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you in the future.
Just like to thank John so much for this presentation, and all of you folks for coming. Great stuff, great ideas, and I heard a lot of thanks in the chat room. This stuff that we can use right away, and that's really nice to hear. Like John said, we'll be hanging around for a few minutes. If you have any questions on this or anything else, feel free to chime in now.